Alright guys, today we're actually going to be replacing the Black Horse side steps with a pair of OEM ones, mainly because they don't make these anymore, at least as far as I can find, and I kind of dented it and it's rusting, so I want to get a nice clean set. I'm going to just show you quick how it looks. You know, if you're interested in these kind, not that they really make them anymore like I said, but this is kind of how they sit on the truck. They look good, but you know, me, I for some reason thought I was in a Jeep, and I kind of drove over a snowy bank in one of the parking lots this winter, and it was a little high, and it kind of caught the side step, and it actually bent it like up and back just a tiny bit, and I got it bent back down, but then I had to shove it forward because these three brackets were bent backwards, and well, in order to get it back that way, I kind of had to sit on the ground and kick it. Well, in my process of that, of course I dented it and it's rusting, so my OCD kicked in. Obviously I don't want like a dented rusty step on a nicer, newer truck, so I bit the bullet on the OEM ones. Now, the only reason I got these right away to begin with was from the dealership, because the OEM ones were not available yet for the 19 body style when I got mine. Otherwise, I would have got those right off the bat. So, also for anyone interested, I did take a trip today, about 320 miles round trip to Superior from the Twin Cities here, which is, you know, like I said, 320 miles, give or take. And I've got some MPG results at the end for those that are interested, so stick with me here. Now, obviously the first step, if you already have side steps on, is to remove your current ones. If you're just starting from scratch, you can go ahead and skip ahead about 45 seconds or so here, and we'll pick up the OEM ones there. Otherwise, follow me and we'll remove these ones. I don't care that it's raining. I'm getting these things put on today. Put some cardboard down and we'll be good. All right, here we are on the bottom side of the truck, on the driver's side. You can see there's one group of bolts there, another there, and another way back there. So 3 sets per side step. I don't know if you have aftermarket side steps, your nuts here might be a different size. Mine are 13 millimeter. So I'm gonna remove the 3 on each bracket. I think the middle one might only have 2. Nope, there's 3. But yeah, we're gonna remove all the nuts and then simply slide the old ones off the studs and remove them from the truck on both sides. And for anyone curious, I'm just using my Milwaukee cordless to remove and install these, except for a couple of the nuts. You can't fit that in place because of this like damper anti-noise cancellation thingamajigger. So hand ratchet. All right, old side steps unbolted. Gonna bring it down now. And I think they look so much better without the side steps just because of how much height you get in the center. It looks more aggressive, but they're a necessity, and I don't want to pay $1,000 for the Amp Research electric ones that open and close with your door, especially living in Minnesota, because you know those are gonna get all iced up and break in the winter time when all the slush freezes. All right, there we go. Both of the Black Horse side steps are removed. These ones actually came with the brackets, and then you had to bolt the tube on yourself and kind of adjust it how you needed it. The Mopar ones are actually already set up with the brackets, so all we got to do is put them in place and bolt them up. All right, and for those interested, here's a side-by-side comparison of the Black Horse with the OEM. You can see the step pads are a little bigger on the OEM. The Black Horse steps, I think, were advertised at 5-inch width, and they actually measure at like 4 3/4. I'm guessing these are 6-inch, and about 5.5. And they seem to be made out of like some sort of like poly or some sort of like plastic or aluminum combo with the steel brackets. So we're gonna go ahead and hang these up on the studs underneath. Also, always double check before you install your parts. I know it's upside down, but you can see right here it says LH for left hand, DT, which is the new body style. The older classic body style is the DS. So we've got the left hand, which should be the driver's side, new body style, crew cab. So Make sure all that stuff matches your truck. Obviously, if you have a quad cab and it says crew, these aren't the right ones. And obviously passenger and driver side are different. So the driver side step is just hanging on the studs right now. The nuts are not installed or tight, but I've already got the passenger side completely on. And now I just want to offer a few words of advice before you get started on this project. Number one is be careful when you're putting these on. If you don't have your truck jacked up or on ramps or anything and you're kind of low to the ground, make sure you don't hit your brackets on your rockers and chip your paint. I did tap my rockers just real lightly a couple times, but the best way I found was to kind of lay on the ground. Either put this under the truck first and put it up in place, or you can lay on your back and put it across your chest. But when you put it in, since obviously you take up some space, you want to feed the step in at the opposite angle it's in right now. So you see it's kind of like this. You want to feed it in like that, because the brackets make an L. Feed it like this and then that, and then up into place and onto the studs. That'll protect and keep you from hitting anything. And then I know some people have said that there's paint from the factory on the studs that these mount to, and you're gonna have a really hard time getting a nut on there or started or even tight. You could potentially snap one of the studs if there's too much paint you're trying to force the nut on. So as you can see on mine, there's really no paint on the threads. There was a little bit of like green Loctite from the factory, but that was it. So I got lucky. If you do have paint on the studs, take like a little whizzy wheel or a drill with a wire brush on it, or just a hand wire brush, and kind of go after these threads, clean them up a little bit before you put the steps in place. Obviously it makes it easier if you do it then. And I will take the provided nuts, which are a 13 millimeter that you'll need a socket or wrench for, and install those. Now, 2 more tips before you get started with installing the nuts. Number 1, if you have some paint on the threads, you're probably not going to need it. You're going to be pretty tight and snug as it is. But if you didn't have paint on your threads like me and you've already had some nuts on and off and back on again, I'm going to use a little bit of a little blue Loctite here. It's just medium strength. I wouldn't use the red because that's high strength, but just a dab like that, just to keep the nuts from loosening up after I torque them down. And then another recommendation would be before you start, maybe go to the hardware store and get yourself, I guess you'd need 18 because there's 9 per side, 18 stainless steel washers for these studs, because as you can see, the holes in the bracket are pretty big. And although it's a flange nut, not a lot of that nut grabs around that hole. I'll show you here. See what I mean? Like, you're not grabbing a whole lot of material. So I'm probably gonna take these nuts off and put washers on it at some point, but you do you. Just an idea. See, this one you can barely see it, but that nut doesn't cover the entire hole. So I don't like it. All right, so I've got all of the nuts for both sides cinched down, and basically here we're at the last part. I know a lot of you are gonna laugh at this, but I'm actually gonna torque it just because I want to. Here's the thing though, their torque spec is 14 plus or minus 2 foot-pounds. Okay, that's fine and dandy. That's basically 12 to 16 foot-pounds. Feel like that's a little on the light side though. And I also don't trust that number because they say that you need a 10 millimeter socket for the nuts, and they're actually a 13 millimeter. So a little bit of a fail there. FCA, Mopar, fail on the directions, fail on not supplying washers. So I actually already torqued the passenger side, and I torqued it to 30 foot-pounds. So as long as you're not cross-threading anything and you're not fighting paint and you can spin the nut fairly well, I think they're lock nuts. So, I mean, you probably need a socket or a wrench to turn them, but as long as they're turning nice and freely and not binding with a wrench or socket, I think you're good. And of course, you can always just cinch them down by hand, but you don't want to over tighten it and you don't want them loose, obviously, which is why I'm doing it this method. So I would recommend 20 to 30 foot-pounds if you're going to torque it. I did mine to 30. I didn't have any issues, no snapping of studs, no stretching, no stripping them out, nothing. So probably not a bad idea to also retorque these after a while. Obviously, when you step on them, they're going to bend to an extent. And they might loosen up over time, which is again why I recommended the Loctite with the washers and to torque them. All right, all nuts torqued down. Now the instructions say to cover the threads with some sort of anti-rust agent, like either like some WD-40 or something, or a rubber coating. I'm just going to use some anti-seize. This is just the silver stuff. Comes with a little brush, so you can just kind of and call it good. One word of warning with anti-seize is it gets everywhere. If you get the tiniest amount on you whatsoever, you're going to get it everywhere. So be careful. Don't get in your truck right after you use this stuff. You'll regret it. And this isn't exactly a necessary step. It's just recommended in case you have to remove the steps for whatever reason, especially if you live in a salty state like myself. You don't want these getting all rusty and you end up snapping the studs or whatever, trying to take them off for whatever reason. So, and last but not least, we'll pull our plastic protective film off of the front and back end caps on each side step. I like the ram. On both ends, I guess. And now to give them the old test. They have about 200 to 215 as far as pounds go, I would say. And, you know, minus the tilt of the actual truck leaning when I step on it, the running boards probably go down. In the front, you can see they go down a fair amount. I don't know if you can tell on camera there, but where you're actually stepping doesn't go down that much. They're approximately the same as the Black Horse ones. The Black Horse ones might have been a tiny bit more sturdy, but not by much. They both use the same mounting points, so really it just comes down to the bracketing, and it might actually stiffen up just a tiny bit more once I get those washers put into place, because that's going to cover more surface area of the bracket and kind of keep it a little more flush against the body. And here's a view with the OEM steps installed. As you can see, they don't really stick out any further than the Black Horse ones, even though they're a good 3/4 of an inch wider. But I really like how it turned out, actually, because I liked how the Black Horse ones were, and I didn't want to be disappointed by how these ones were, but I think they look good. They don't hang down too ridiculously low. And I guess time will tell how they hold up. The Black Horse ones held up fairly well, aside from where I dented it and they started rusting. There's a few scratches on them and a little bit of rust starting where the welds were on the mounting brackets, but other than that, pretty good. So truck soaked, cardboard soaked, I'm soaked, but it was worth it. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this. Don't forget to hit the bell. Check me out on Facebook at Tony the Truck Guy. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Big old pterodactyl poop. Can't have nothing nice, especially on a black truck. I'm also interested to see how these turn out in the rain, because if you're driving down the road that it's been raining and there's water kind of in the ruts of the road and the tires kick up water on the bottom of the Black Horse tubular side steps, you could hear like a wah. Hard to make the noise. I'll put a clip here if I can find a video of me filming it, which I did at one point. But even with the mud flaps, the water would hit it and make that noise. It's not a huge deal, but it's kind of annoying. So I think these not being a tubular style, they're going to be a little bit more balanced as far as like dampened goes. So I guess we'll see how that goes, and I'll try to report on that as well. Don't be these idiots. Turn your lights on in inclement weather. Ford's going off the road up there. Maybe they're about ready to roll over to 15K too. Da-da-da-da. All right, and for those of you interested, averaged 18.5 round trip on that trip we just did, which was 318 miles, which is actually pretty good given we had like a 10 to 15 mile an hour crosswind both ways basically the whole time. I was doing 70 the whole way. There was probably 10 miles, 15 miles worth I was doing 60 because of road construction or because the speed limit was just that low. But for the most part, it was at 70, which for me, I got the 392 rear end ratio, so I'm turning about 1900 RPMs at 70, which is a little higher than most guys, because also keep in mind I have the Goodyear Wrangler Duratrax, which are one size bigger, heavier, and more aggressive than stock. So we've got that, the higher gear ratio, plus the 1.5-inch level in the front, so less aerodynamic. So I would say 18.5 is pretty good. You know, it's always nice to hit 20 in a truck, but I'll take the 18.5 any day. That's pretty good for what I've got.